Hi everyone. Hello. Hi everyone, how are you? I'm Kero. Sorry, my Arabic is nowhere near as good as his Arabic. Forgive me, I'll try. But yeah, Arabic بتاعي not that good. فأوز asked النهاردة أتكلم and it was actually an interesting topic. So I was asked to talk about إيه اللي إحنا بنعمله غلط, what we do wrong as parents, and يعني what we can do to correct our parenting. I'm a parent as well, I've got a few kids. But there's a lot that we do wrong as parents. A lot of us will feel at the end of the day, قبل ما ننام نفكر how did we do today, good, bad. A lot of the time we're not happy with ourselves as parents. I picked the top 3 things اللي احنا بنشوفه. So I work at Exodus. We're a social services organization. بنشتغل مع a lot of families and young people, and we do a lot of counseling and family counseling and things like that. For what we see a lot as a counselor, what I see a lot, and also from studies, there's a lot of literature, studies online that look at families and family problems, family breakups, وكل الكلام ده, and there's findings that they have from these studies. So looking at the 2, I picked the top 3 things that we may not do well a lot of the time. And then we'll talk about those 3 things and how we can do better. Please, if you have questions, just raise your hand, or even at the end we can take some questions. So just a disclaimer, this is just theory. مش عايز you guys today to feel sad, upset, or it's hopeless, or خلاص, I've done these things for my children, finished. That's not the case. This is very, very general information. Even the strategies are very general. ساعات we can do these strategies and ما بيشتغلوش, they don't work. It's okay. This is just theory. Every family is different, every child's different, every parent's different. But I don't want you guys to hear some of this stuff and feel that, it's hopeless or there's no hope. Absolutely not. So the first problem a lot of us have as parents, and we don't have a positive relationship with our children. We don't have a positive relationship with our children. Is it سألنا our kids what they think of how their relationship is with their parents? A lot of them, mama baba بيزعقوا, بيضربوا, they're not nice, they're too strict, too many rules, blah blah blah. And for us, come in as parents, if we think about the interactions we have with our kids every day, we think how many of them were positive, great, ضحك وهزار, and loving, and emotions, and very nice, and how much of it was زعيق and naked and frustration and yelling and punishments. And as the kids grow, and we'll get to that in a bit, but as the kids grow, this has a negative impact and continues to have a negative impact كل ما العيال يكبروا. And for reasons that we'll go through. So, for example, a lot of us minimize our children's emotions, and a lot of studies show when they interview children and they assess and speak to children on their relationships with their parents, a lot of the time, احنا as parents, we minimize our child's emotions. What they're feeling to us is not as important as the outcome, as how they're behaving, or if they got in trouble, or if they've done something wrong, or if they're misbehaving. For the outcome and action to us as parents, a lot of the time, more important than how they're feeling. وساعات even we don't ask how they're feeling, or we don't try to understand إيه اللي بيحصل to the child that's causing them to misbehave, to be naughty, to be rude, to be angry, to be whatever. We just focus on the action. And for these reasons, we want them to be emotionally strong. A lot of the time, مش عايزينهم يعيطوا, no crying. Crying's for little kids. Stop crying and we can talk. طب I'll talk to you when you finish crying. We don't let the children have emotions, and we don't try to understand the emotions to our kids. Don't be sad. And again, we're not there's more to the story. If they misbehave, ماشي, they misbehave. We don't ask why. We don't get the big picture. We just focus on the action. Not listening to our children. Probably one of the biggest complaints من العيال, and نحن as parents, we don't listen to them. They try to talk, they try to tell us, and we don't listen. And we think they're just arguing. We don't want to hear what they have to say. What they did is wrong, there's no excuse. مش عايزين نسمع. We don't want to hear. You've done the wrong thing. Don't give me excuses. For a lot of the time, they're trying to talk to us, and we don't listen. And unfortunately, it comes out in their behavior. For they're trying to talk to us, tell us what's wrong. We're not listening, or we're too busy. And then that feeling's not processed. For it comes out for behavior. A lot of the time, we're just busy. Even if we love our kids, we want to hear them, but we're busy. A lot of us are on a screen. So many parents, either on a laptop working from home, on WhatsApp, relatives in Egypt chatting, Facebook, Instagram, social media. A lot of parents use social media. But a lot of us are just too busy to hear and to listen to what our kids are saying. And the impact on the kids is these things. They don't feel heard. They don't feel valued. They don't feel important. They don't feel that they're a priority. Because we're too busy with other things than to listen and talk to our kids. Comparing our kids to other kids, big problem. I think culturally for us as well, it's a big problem. We see other kids and they're well behaved. They're doing very well to madrasa. Good grades, dakatra, engineers, architects, HSC marks, awesome. وإحنا عايزين our kids to be the same. So we compare our kids to other people's kids. And it's very, very damaging to a child to be compared. And compared in a bad way. A lot of the time as well, why we do that? عشان our kids is a reflection on us. If our kids are good, احنا شكلنا we're good. We did a good job. If our kids are bad, it's very embarrassing for us. مش مربينهم, we don't care, we're bad parents. For how our kids behave is a reflection on us. So we sometimes, unfortunately, compare to other kids. And again, an impact عليهم, their sense of worth, their value, their self-esteem بتاعهم, their self-confidence, how they see themselves. If they don't think, if they see us and we don't think they're good enough or they're not as good as the other kid, that's how they're going to feel. I'm not good enough. And as they grow, it impacts their personality. Who they are, their actual personality, is impacted by these kinds of things. Not spending time. As simple as that. We don't spend time, we work, we go to church, for Kenisa, we serve, we serve Sunday school, we do visitations, we visit our parents, we do wagib, we go visit people in hospital. We do so many things, and a lot of the time we don't spend quality time or one-on-one time with our children, with our kids. And the last one, unrealistic expectations. فإحنا عايزين our kids to be something, and that expectation is sometimes high or not realistic. We want them to get certain grades. They're not going to get the grades at school. We want them to behave in a certain way. And they're kids. They're not going to behave in that way a lot of the time. We expect so much from our kids, and they can't meet the expectations بتاعنا, and it impacts them. So all of these things causes us, we don't have a positive relationship with our children. The second one is us, how we are, and being a bad or poor role model for our kids. We want our kids to be kaza, 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 and ourselves, we may not be doing all these things or living our life the way we want our kids to live their lives. A lot of us get angry, and if our kids are angry, they're in big trouble. A lot of us get frustrated. We're angry, we get frustrated. But if our kids do that and that's how they feel, many of us don't allow that. They get in trouble. Yelling. احنا بنزعق فيهم and then هم بيزعقوا في بعض أو بيتخانقوا مع بعض and we بنزعق فيهم. يعني إحنا بنزعق فيهم عشان هم ما يزعقوش. A lot of the time we do the same behavior that we're trying to stop the behavior in our children. The funniest one لما العيال يعني بنضربهم. فعيل بيضرب أخوه and the punishment إن إحنا بنضربه. طب it really makes no sense. We're not role modeling the behavior اللي إحنا عايزين نشوف في عيالنا. Us being lazy, procrastinating, not doing what we need to do, putting things off later, بعدين بكرة, I'll do it tomorrow. Too much screen. So many of us are telefonات, iPads, laptops, and we want our kids to get off the screen, get off the phone. No screen. No more Nintendo Switch. وإحنا a lot of the time on the phone. So children learn, and this is science, and this is biology, and this is DNA and brain wiring, and everything in the development of a child tells us children learn by what they see and what they feel more than what they hear. وإحنا as parents, a lot of the time, we only teach kids by talking, telling them, do this, don't do this, كده عيب, غلط, لا, no. We only teach them by talking. But kids learn much more by what they see and what they experience, what they feel. فإحنا ممكن نقول لهم all day, do this, don't do this, عيب, ربنا هيزعل, مش عارف إيه, everything, we can tell them everything. بس هم ما بيشوفوش إن إحنا عايشين كده أو إحنا بنعمل كده. We don't live like that. We don't do the same thing that we're telling them. هم هيتعلموا, they learn from what they see us do, not by what we tell them. Studies as well show, and I don't know how old your kids are, everyone here, but parents, mum and dad, are the biggest influence on their children up until around 15 years old, roughly, in general. From when our kids are صغيرين up until they get 14, 15 years old, we are their biggest influences. They learn most, not from their teachers, not from their friends, not from their Sunday school teachers. They learn most مننا, from their parents. After 15, 16, the biggest influence on children is their friends. They're more influenced by their friendships than anyone else, parents, teachers, any other adult. And the last thing, the problem with us not leading by example, every interaction that we have with our children is an opportunity, فرصة, for them يتعلموا حاجة. Every interaction, every time we interact with them, عيالنا بيتعلموا مننا حاجة. So we have to think these interactions, if they're positive, العيال هيتعلموا حاجات positive. They'll see and they'll feel and their experience معانا is positive. They'll absorb that, they'll learn that, they'll become that. Is that interactions that we have with the kids are negative or more negative than positive, then that's what they're going to learn. And the last one is lack of boundaries or discipline, or lack of correct, positive boundaries and positive discipline. But of course, احنا parents, we have to discipline our children. We have to, we want to raise them well, we have to discipline them. We have to. The problem is the way we discipline can be positive or can be negative. For the one main rule in regards to disciplining, there's a concept هنا اسمها respond, for us to respond to our kids, not react to our kids. And I'll explain the difference. Reactions are العيل بيعمل حاجة, does something, and our reaction is immediate, on the spot. No thinking, no planning, no system to our reaction at all. It's just we react للي بيحصل. Whatever they said, whatever they done, اللي احنا جوانا زعلانين, frustrated, متنرفزين, whatever, that's what comes out. That's a reaction. It's impulsive, there's no thought. A lot of the time there's anger, the reactions بتاعنا. Criticism, for something negative comes out, criticizing the child. or what they've done, or how they're behaving, or how they're talking. Judgment, if it's a negative reaction, there's a judgment there, and the kid has done something bad. Therefore, the kid's bad. They're behaving bad, but the message the child gets is, I'm bad. Not my behavior's bad, أنا وحش. مش اللي بعمله وحش, لا أنا وحش. I'm bad. Accusations, and then a lot of the time, punishments that are a bit extreme. يعني احنا in the moment, متجننين, متنرفزين, whatever, and we just give a punishment with no thinking. And a lot of the time, يعني we have no intention نحن enforce this punishment. We're not going to do what we say. We just said it because we're angry. Even going the other way, giving them what they want. عشان خلاص مش قادرين. We've got a headache, صداع, and it's too much. We've had a long day at work. خلاص, no worries. Go, no problem. Again, no thinking, no planning. It's just a reaction. So we're not responding to the kids or to their behaviors. We're just reacting. So these reactions, they're a short-term temptation. They may be successful in the short term. They may solve your problem, or they may stop the child from doing the behavior in that moment. يمكن, maybe. But they're not a long-term solution. What the child learns, and as the child grows and develops, reactions is not teaching and is not a solution to the problem. It's like a band-aid. The lahza di, maybe you yell and scream and the kid يخاف and they'll stop being naughty and they'll go to their room. You got what you want. It's a short-term solution, maybe. Not a long-term solution. Not a positive teaching opportunity for the child. So they're the three biggest things, is us not having a positive relationship with our children, us not being a good role model in the way we act, or the way we live our lives, and the third one is no boundaries or no positive, effective discipline for the children. Any questions or comments, or any other big ones that people feel is a common thing that we do wrong as parents? No? Awesome. Okay. So let's be positive. I'll talk positive, no more naked, and we'll see what we can do better, how we can fix some of this stuff. So the first one, positive relationship, and this concept is very important. إحنا كparents لما العيال بتوعنا صغيرين, when they're young, the relationship بيننا وبينهم is authoritative. We're the parents, they're the little children, there's rules, there's punishments, لا, yes, no, everything is by order because they're young. They have no independence, they can't think for themselves, they don't know, مش عارفين إيه الصح وإيه الغلط. فإحنا, our role as parents is very strict, authoritative. We make the rules, they have to listen, end of discussion. They're kids, no problem. As they get older, that relationship, that dynamic has to change. It has to change. And the problem with us as parents, a lot of the time, it doesn't change. We still want our kids to be good. We don't want them to be bad. We don't want them to make bad decisions. We don't want them to get in trouble. We don't want them to go off and do all sorts of things. We hold on to that control to try and make sure and they turn out good. And the problem is that control doesn't work. When they hit 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that relationship no longer works. And it causes a lot of problems. And for those that have teenagers, I'm sure you can agree, and that level of control and how we raise our kids doesn't work. As they grow, the relationship has to change, and they will make mistakes, and we're not in control, and we're not going to see them when they go out every minute of the day, and they're not going to be as we want them to be. But as long as we try and hang on to that control and force them to obey and to listen and to do what we say, and they're growing and they have their own mind, they have their independence. They can think for themselves. Sorry. And their mind is different to our mind. There's going to be friction. There's going to be conflict. For as best as we can, as they grow, to change that dynamic to a supportive relationship, a friendship, a relationship that gives and takes, not just gives, not just instructs, not just demands. And that's where we said before, talking to our kids, listening to our kids, interacting with our kids, spending time with our kids. And we'll get to how we have that positive relationship. But just to make the point, the way we deal with our kids وهم صغيرين has to be different to the way we deal with them لما بيكبروا. So, positive communication, respect, trust, these things, a lot of the time, we don't give our kids when they're older. We don't respect them. We still treat them like they're kids. We still talk to them like they're kids. We don't trust them, especially if they've done something, or they've lied, or they've misbehaved, or whatever it is they're doing. We don't trust them. We don't trust what they say. We don't trust them to be alone. We don't spend time with them, like we said before. So doing these things, even if it's hard, even if it's tricky, doing these things will give us positive relationships with our kids. How do we do these things? The first one is to listen first and to speak second. But when we're interacting with them, if they want to say something, if they've got a different view, if they're not happy, if they disagree with us, if they're angry and frustrated and upset, for us to listen to them first and for us to speak second, rather than speaking first and then they don't speak at all and the conversation's finished. For us to learn about their interests, spending time with them means learning about them, who they are, what they like. They are going to be different to us. They're going to be different to us. So we take the time نتعرف عليهم. What they like, what they don't like, what they're interested in, how their mind works, why this topic they think differently than me, why they disagree with what we're saying, how does their brain work. Treat them the way we want them to treat us. Like we said before in the role modeling, the way we interact is if we don't want them to be disrespectful, we shouldn't disrespect them. We don't want them to yell, we don't want them to be angry, we control our anger when we deal with them. And it's very hard to do, but it's a very simple concept. Very, very simple concept, but very, very hard to do. Create a safe zone for asking questions, disclosing information. This is, and I'll no disrespect to myself or anyone here because we're all Egyptian, but I think this is a big problem in our culture. So in our culture as Egyptians, if our kids come to us having done something wrong, our initial response is usually not a good one. And the problem is we then stop the child from coming to us next time there's a problem. Use this one? Yeah? Okay. We stop the child from coming to us the next time they have a problem. عشان آخر مرة when they came to us and they told us they had a problem or what they'd done wrong or how they were feeling or they made a big mistake or whatever, our reaction was not good and they're not going to come to us again. And the problem is, if they don't come to us, who are they going to go to? And how do we know and the people they're going to are going to give them the correct advice or the correct information? I will support them in a way that their parents will support them. We can't guarantee that. But we're the ones that stopped them from coming to us, because when they did, it was za'i and narfaza and judging and punishments, and it wasn't pleasant. For creating a safe zone, letting them feel, and as parents, we're safe and they are okay to come and talk to us, because we're going to help them and we're going to listen to them, and we're not going to yell and we're not going to make the problem worse for them because they came to us. Pick your battles. For as kids grow older, again, for the parents that عندهم عيال, أكبر في السن, you'll know there's a lot of battles. every day, multiple times a day, there's a million battles that we're going to have with our children. If we choose to have every single battle, that's a big problem. That's not a nice household. That's not a nice relationship. If we're going to have every battle, it's not okay. And the balance of positive and negative interactions is going to be very, very unbalanced. But as hard as this sometimes is, we have to let some things go. And there's some things absolutely not. We're not going to let go. And we have to have the battle. 100%. بس في حاجات احنا ممكن نفوتها. There are things that ممكن نفوت وما ندقش with certain things. And they're the things that we should try to let go. And be picky and choose which battles we're going to have with our kids. And again, balancing the positive and negative interactions. If they're not balanced, if the negative is 80 and the positive is 10 every day, that's a bad relationship we have with our kids. So we have to try and balance. If we're going to have negative interactions, we have to balance them with positive interactions, at least. And if we can get it the other way around, mea. So, biblically, in James, it says, "So then, my beloved children, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath." So what we said before in the strategy, swift to hear, but we listen first. We listen first. Slow to speak, but we speak second. We're slow to speak. We think. We don't react, we respond. We're slow and we're composed and we think before we discipline, before we punish, before we talk to our child. And slow to wrath, slow to anger, slow to frustration, slow to a negative reaction. But we listen first, we speak second, and we minimize the anger and the frustration when we deal with the kids. The second one, how to be a positive role model. And I should have put this in the first one as well. We need to pray a lot, and I'm sure we can all agree as parents, and if we try to parent by ourselves, that's a disaster. For anything that we do every day, and even, we should ask ourselves, how often do we pray for our kids? How often do we pray with our kids? احنا كلنا as parents, مسيحيين, we want our kids to be Christians. How many of us pray with our children? How many families here pray as a family? How many of us make sure before they go to bed إن إحنا بنصلي معاهم? How many of our kids see us as parents بنصلي? Not coming to church on Sunday, that's easy. But how many of our kids see us as parents في البيت with each other, husband and wife, or as a family بنصلي? And if we want our kids to pray in the morning, at night time, before they eat, during the day, if they don't learn it from us, they're not going to learn it in Sunday school. The Sunday school teacher telling you have to pray, read the Bible, and Abuna comes and does visitations and we open the Bible and read. That's nowhere near enough for the child to have a prayerful life. They have to see and experience that from the parents. So praying is very important. Anything you say to them, again, do yourself. Very simple. Anything we say or we want them to do, if we're not doing it ourselves, and it's contradictory. Be humble, kind, and generous. Again, we want to see these things in our children. إحنا لازم, we have to show our kids this stuff inside ourselves. Show them Christ in us as parents, as we said. And our children turn out like us, whether we like it or not. And if you think, all of us think, I can guarantee all of us are like our parents in one way or another. And even, I'm sure a lot of us, the things that we didn't like in our parents when we were younger, we said to ourselves, I'm going to make sure that I'm not like my dad or I'm not like my mum. I hate it when they do this. I'm never going to do that with my kids. And some people are smiling. I can guarantee you, it's human nature. It's human nature. If I just know how we are, the things that we do and the way we act and behave and who we are as people, it's likely in our kids will take a lot of that from us. It's likely. And the last one, with having positive boundaries and positive discipline. So we said we're not going to react, we're going to respond. How do we respond? So what's involved with responding is these things here. أول حاجة, it's intentional. إحنا قاصدين to say or do what it is. It's not غصبا عننا أو كنا متنرفزين and we're angry and we just said it. No, it's planned and it's intentional. It's on purpose. We know what we're saying. We've thought about what we're saying. We know why we're saying this or why we're taking this road, because it's planned. It's intentional. It's thought out. It aims to achieve a long-term goal. فاللي احنا بنقوله أو the action that we take or how we respond, it's in line with a goal that we want to achieve with our kids. فاحنا عايزينهم you turn out كذا. If that's what we want, we're going to make sure in the discipline that we do or the response that we give is going to help them to get to that goal. There's a teaching element. For a reaction, there's no teaching. It's just a reaction. But a response, بنعلمهم حاجة. We're teaching them something positive with the way we're doing it. Because of these things, because it's intentional, because it's thought out, because it's achieving a goal, they're learning something positive when we respond to them in this way, in this correct way. Focuses on each child individually. For a response is not just, if we've got 3 kids, and the 3 kids are doing something and we're reacting the same way to every kid. Or go to your room, go to your room, go to your room. Every kid's different. Every kid learns different. Every kid responds to us in a different way. فاحنا we have to customize and tailor a response بتاعنا to our kids, because our kids are different. They're not all the same. And the last one is a response. It considers the reasons for the misbehavior and an understanding on our part. إحنا فاهمين, we understand why our child is behaving this way. We know what's happening for them. Emotionally, psychologically, trauma, previous experience, sadness, whatever, tiredness. They didn't sleep last night and that's why they're behaving the way they are. فاحنا عارفين, we know what's happening and we're responding accordingly. Okay, so we've gone through that. So the last bit is in regards to boundaries, how we set boundaries, appropriate boundaries for the kids. So why we need boundaries, I'm sure we all know why we need boundaries. So our kids, we prepare them for the real world. When they leave us, when they're 18, when they're 19, 20, when they go out into the real world, the reality is there. There's rules, there's boundaries, there's consequences, barra. So we have to teach them and prepare them for when they leave. It helps them learn about rules, how to obey them. It teaches them about consequences and helps them show respect, consideration, and selflessness. If they have boundaries and discipline, it helps them how they interact with other people, with their friends, with their teachers, with their Sunday school servants, with a police officer, with someone in a shopping center. It teaches our child how to interact with other humans. So how do we set them? We have to think, when we're putting boundaries and rules, we have to think of 3 things, okay? The first one is what we're trying to achieve. Why we're putting this boundary. For what reason? There has to be a reason for why we're setting these boundaries. What are we trying to achieve? The second one is how we have to acknowledge how strict we are as parents. For we have to reflect, this is how I parent, this is how strict I am, this is what I'm okay with, and I'm not okay with this, okay? And the third thing we have to understand is how unruly our child is. So unruly, only how the behavior of our children. If we know العيل بتاعنا شقي شوية, or a bit hyper, or a bit more active than other kids, or a bit more sensitive, a bit softer than other kids, we have to understand that, so then we can choose the best rules and the best boundaries. Because if we don't know, or we don't acknowledge how our kid is, and we just put in rules and boundaries that don't work with the child, that's a big problem. But these three things we have to think about before we decide to put rules and boundaries. So how we set them? Again, we pray. We must pray. We all must pray before we do anything in our parenting. We have to pray. We have to pray. Mama or Baba both have to be on the same page. There's no point in dad has rules and mum has rules and those two rules are conflicting. That's a disaster. So mum and dad have to talk. We have to be on the same page. We have to be reasonable. Again, we pick our battles. For a child, 1,000,000 rules, they're choked. They can't live. They hate it. And it's not reasonable. But we have to be reasonable with the boundaries and the rules that we set. This is a really important one. We have to involve the children. For involving the child in the boundary or the rule is very, very effective. If they get to choose their rules, or if they agree to them, or if they help come up and develop them, then when we come to have to implement the rule, there's more chance that they're going to stick to that rule because they were involved. It's not a surprise. Oh, they had a say. They had an opinion. They helped develop it. Be clear. No surprises. Kids don't like surprises. So the kids need to know what the rules are, and if they break them, what the consequences is. Follow through. Big mistake we make. We make rules and then we don't follow through with them. And the kids, they know. And nahna batatas. Doesn't matter. I can do what I want and they're not going to get me in trouble. It's okay. I'll get away with it. If we don't make a rule if you're not going to follow through with the rule. Don't make it. You're better to have no rules than to make rules and not implement them. And the last one is we do our best before God and we let go of the outcome. At the end of the day, we do the best that we can and God will do the rest. We're not going to be 100%. We're not going to be 90%. We're probably not going to be 60% in our parenting. Probably. But we do the best we can with the ability that God gave us, and we have faith in the God. And I always say this, they're God's children before they're our children. They're not mine and they're not yours. They're His. And He will take care of them and He will fill the gaps that we make. 100% He will. But we have to trust that. Our only job is to do the best we can and to do better tomorrow and to pray more tomorrow and to do better tomorrow. And if we do that, God will fix all the masahib that we do in our parenting. 100%. Just, examples. And the last quote from St. John Chrysostom, I really, really like this. Having children is a matter of nature. But for us to have children and give birth, that's nature. It's a matter of nature. Raising them and educating them in the virtues of God, in Christian virtues, is a matter of mind and will. فاحنا, our willingness to raise our kids in the virtues of God and Christ, it's a decision and it's effort. It's our mind, it's our heart, it's our effort that we put in. Having kids is nature, easy, no problem. Raising them properly takes a lot on our end. Any questions, comments? Sorry? There were examples of boundaries? Okay. So just some examples of what kind of boundaries may look like. So what time they'll come home. If they're older and they're going out, what time are you going to come home? Having curfew, an agreed curfew. How much screen or gaming they get, that's a big one. Every household needs rules and boundaries in how much screen time the children are going to get. Boyfriends, girlfriends, when they get older, our kids, and especially in this day and age that's very, very scary, the relationship with the opposite sex. What are our rules? What are our boundaries? What are we okay with? What are we not okay with? And how are we going to set those boundaries and communicate those boundaries clearly and discuss those boundaries with the kids? Who can come to the house? Who can they bring home to our home? Which types of friends or which friends are going to come into our house? What activities they can and cannot do when they go out? Where are they going? What are they doing? When they get older, where are they going on a Friday night? They're not coming to church. Where are they going? Or a Saturday night? What are we okay with and what are we not okay with and why? and we discuss it and we explain and we listen to our kids and we agree and we negotiate on the rules of our house. Chores. What rules, what chores are they going to get? How are they going to contribute to the house? What's fair? And if they don't, what's the consequence? And again, study. How many hours of study, homework, assignments, exams are coming up? How many hours and the routine of studying, balancing that with going out, going to church, going out with friends. These are some examples of the common boundaries or rules that we all have to put in our houses. Sorry, I just skipped them because of time. Sorry. That's a great question. So look, I think it's important for children to understand that concept, and that they are different to their brother and sister, and the way the parents interact with each child is going to be different. An important message they need to understand is things need to be fair but different. So to a kid, if something's different, it's not fair. I want what they want. I want what they get. But you don't have to get what they get. It can still be fair. You can get something different, but it's still fair. No one's getting more than the other. They're just getting different things. And it's the same with discipline, and it's the same with rules, and it's the same with punishment. So, and depending on the age of the children, depending on the understanding of the children, in an age-appropriate way, احنا نفهم our kids that concept with their brothers and sisters, that not everything has to be the same, but we'll do our very best to make sure everything's fair. And then we can prove it to them. For example, yes, your brother is allowed this and you're not allowed this, but you're allowed this, or last week you had this and I said no to them. So as much as we can, in an age-appropriate way, in a way in our kids yifhamu what we're trying to say, to explain to them this concept. Is you're different than your brother, for the way I deal with you is going to be different to the way I deal with your brother, because you're not the same person. But fairness is something else. And if you don't think it's fair, we can talk about it. But it is going to be different. And they need to understand that. Yeah. Yes? Yeah. Look, so as a counselor, even in a counseling session with a client, we call that self-disclosure. So self-disclosure is لما احنا نتكلم عن نفسنا and we disclose something to someone about ourselves. It can be very, very helpful and very good, and it can be an absolute disaster. And it's very case-by-case scenario, and it's very dependent on the situation and the context. I'll give you an example. Me growing up, this is not recorded, is it? It is recorded. I'll give you the example anyway. Me growing up, there was a lot of years, me growing up, where I was not a good person at all. If you knew me growing up, you wouldn't ask me to give this talk. But my life experience, and unfortunately I went off, thank God I came back, but I went off on a path that was not good at all. Something like that, it would be very risky for me to share that with my kids. It would be very risky. For I would, given the details and things like that, my aim is to not have them do that. That's why I'll tell them, أنا عملت كذا كذا كذا, and it was not good, and this is the impact, and it was horrible, and thank God I came back. So the reason I would say that to them is to stop them from doing it. But given the details and given the risk with something like that, I wouldn't do that. Other things I would. I didn't study at school and I failed an exam and I had to repeat. Something like that, I would disclose that to show them, yani, look what happens when you don't study, and learn from me. I had to repeat a whole year of school. I lost a whole year of school. Yani, imagine if you had to repeat year 5 all over again because you didn't study. You'd hate it. You'd be with the year 4 kids now. That's horrible. You wouldn't like that. That's what happened to me. So trust me. Study, do your homework so you can succeed. And something like that, I would. But it's very dependent on what you want to share. It's very dependent on what you want to achieve. It's very dependent on your child and how they'll take that information. Because a lot of kids will do it because you did it. And then they'll say, you did that. Why are you yelling at me? You did the same thing. You were horrible when you were young. And now I'm being horrible and I'm getting in trouble. Mate, you were the same. So some kids, it depends. It all depends. There's no right or wrong answer. It takes a lot of wisdom to know what to share, what not to share. But just think of that. Think of what the content, what it is you're sharing, why you want to share that, what you want to achieve. And think of your child, and you know your child best. Will that help the child, or will that backfire completely? So, yeah, something like that. Look, I think the first part is, like you said, if you're doing it without anger, without frustration, without criticism, without judgment, without all those things, that's a great start. I think it's important to explain to children why. For example, don't run on the road. Don't run on the road. Do not run on the road. If I see you running on the road, you're going to get in big trouble and you're going to go inside and you're grounded for a month. Do not step outside without an adult. Do not run on the road. Normal. Why? A lot of the time we don't tell our kids why. And the why is because a car's going to come and hit you and your brains are going to be splattered all over the road and you're probably going to die. Not that extreme, but there's a reason why we have rules. A lot of the times we may not explain to the child why. And then it's 3 steps. It's the rule, don't do this or do this. The reason why we don't want them to do this, and being clear on the consequence that will happen if they do it. So we give them the rule, we explain why we're giving them this rule, what's the purpose, and we let them know what will happen if they don't stick to the rule. And then if they don't, we have the conversation. We said not to do this because this and this and this will happen. So you knew, you did it anyway, and you know the punishment is going to be kaza. So tfaddal, punishment, and that's it. Again, with no anger, with no reaction, with no frustration. We're measured, we're clear, we're consistent, and we do it like that. The other thing that we have to make sure we don't do, we separate the behavior from the child. Very, very important. So the child's behavior is bad. The child is not bad. The child is being naughty. The child is not naughty. The child stole something, you're stealing, but the child themselves is not a thief. So we separate, same concept as hate the sin, not the sinner. بنكره the خطية بس ما بنكرهش the person. We love the person, we hate the sin. And it's the same thing with our kids. Separate their bad behavior from them as a child. 100%. So something like that, there's no "I told you so" because yes. So and yani, getting that message across, it has to balance. Don't go outside by yourself. Don't run on the road because if you do, you can get hit by a car and die. And if you don't, if I catch you doing this, this is the punishment. The punishment also has to match the rule. For something like that, the punishment is probably going to be very high because the child needs to understand that this is a very big punishment. Why? Because this is a very, very big deal. It's a big rule. If you go outside, you can die. For one, they have to match. Two, then the responsibility is on us. If we're putting rules on our children and it's safety, the rule is around safety, the rule itself is not enough because the child's the child. They can go out and do it anyway. It doesn't matter how big the punishment is. It doesn't matter how much we explain to them the consequence. It doesn't matter how much we scared them from doing it. They're children. But if the child does this or breaks this rule and the consequence is damaging or life and death or safety, then the responsibility still falls on us to make sure that doesn't happen. For younger kids, stuff like that, don't go outside. We have to make sure we lock our doors. We have to make sure that we're supervising them at all times. We have to make sure that there's a fence around our yard just in case they do get out. With older kids, don't do drugs because drugs can kill you. If they do drugs and by the shot something happens, yes, there's no "I told you so, go to your room." Khalas. The rules that we put in place where the consequence is catastrophic or dangerous or safety, we have to do what we can to make sure that that child doesn't have the opportunity to make that mistake. And that responsibility is on us. Yeah. Does that? Not really. Yeah. They want to run out on the road? Yeah. So, and look, depending on the age and depending on the dynamic, again, a very detailed, lengthy conversation, challenging them. Tob, you don't think it's that bad, but I can tell you it is that bad. I've lived much more than you. I know the consequences. Look at the news. Let's look up how many children died on the streets in New South Wales in the last 5 years. Like a much deeper, detailed discussion to try to convince, influence, get the child on side with what it is. And still, if the child's very rebellious or just doesn't agree or is stubborn or whatever, then you're the parent. You don't agree. I heard you. I understand that you don't think it's a big deal. But I'm the parent. To me, this is safety. This is high risk. We don't agree. I'm the parent. This is the rule. Sorry, I heard you. I respect your view. I don't agree with it. And ma'alesh, samahni, this is the rule because I'm your parent. When you're 16, you can do what you like, Habibi. But for now, this is the rule because the outcome is very, very dangerous according to me. Sometimes there's no negotiation. And that's where you be authoritative. Respectfully, calmly, not angry, not reactive, all of that stuff we discussed, but authoritative. You're the parent, you lay down the law, and you don't give room for any negotiation. Yes. Sorry. So, I think the first thing is if you're in control of yourself, if you're not angry, if you're not frustrated, if you don't have all these negative things happening for you, you'll be much clearer, clear-minded to figure that out. You're not going to yell, you're not going to scream, you're not having a reaction, you've calmed down, you're in control of your emotions, you've given yourself a bit of time, you're not going to talk to him as soon as he comes in the car, you're going to talk to him 3 hours later. And in that 3 hours, you're calm, you're collected, you've prayed, you might speak to your husband or your sister or someone else if you want an opinion or view. There's certain things that you've done to make sure and it's an appropriate response and that you're not reacting because of your emotions. So that's the first thing. So something as simple as time, not here and now, in an hour, or when we get home, or after dinner. That's a first strategy that could be very, very helpful. The second strategy is, again, like we said, what do you want to achieve? Go backwards, work backwards. So first jump to the outcome. What do you want to achieve? I want my child to be this, this and this, or to not be this, this and this. That's what I want. Mesh, how am I going to do that? What's the best chance? I know my kid, I know their personality, I know their strengths, I know their weaknesses. What's the best chance with this kid to achieve that? What's the best strategy I can come up with? And you think of that. Like we said with responses, it's intentional, you mean it, it's on purpose, it's thought out, it's planned, you've given it some time, some thought, some resources maybe. You're achieving the goal that you want to achieve. You've thought of the goal, you know what you want to achieve and you're working towards that. You're teaching the child something. So it's not just a consequence for no reason or just a punishment because you want to get back at them. That's a reaction. You're teaching them something. There's a teaching element there. It's specific to that child, like we said. And you have all the information. When they come back from school and they've done that musiba, you have the information. You may speak to the parent. You may speak to the child first and then talk to them later that night. You're gathering all the information. You know how they were feeling. You know why they were upset. You know what happened and you know what's behind the behavior. And you use all that information to respond appropriately. So all of these things, I think, and if I can almost guarantee if we do these 6 things or 5 of these 6 things when we come to interact with our child to discipline them or to consequence them or whatever, it'll be correct. It will be the best it can be. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you so much.